So today we'll be showing you guys 3 builds in the Division 3, which I consider top tier, probably the best in their class. One is a CC build, one is an explosive damage build, and one is a hybrid turret pistol build. And I think all 3 of these perform to the highest of their abilities, and I feel like they shine at the top, and they probably are my favorite 3 skill builds in the game. So I hope you guys are ready. Hopefully you guys are locked and loaded. But let's dive into the first build. So the first build is an explosive damage build, and this build is probably one of my favorite. Hopefully you guys are ready for this one. Let's break it down. So if we look at the build itself, we have a lot of yellows, right? We have 1 blue, and you can see that we are running 913,000 armor, 316,000 health. And I'm actually going to tell you 2 different ways you can actually run this as we break down the build. I'll explain it there. We do run the Demolitionist because we are running the Mortar Turret. Remember, the Mortar Turret only works with the Demolitionist class. Now for the weapons, you want to run with probably these 3 are probably going to be your best bet, but it's really up to you. Harmony's great because it has perfectly in sync. Remember, if you're shooting your enemy, if your skill's doing damage, that's going to be a total of 40% extra skill damage and 40% extra weapon damage. Great setup right there. I like running the Sweet Dreams personally on skill builds for all those purple and non-elite enemies, because if they come up to you, you can melee them and the cooldown is 15 seconds. Now what I'm going to have equipped 99% of the time is this pistol right here. This is the named new pistol that came out. It has that 1 skill tier. Remember, it gives you 30% extra skill damage as long as you're shooting and your skills are doing damage. And as long as I have this equipped, I have 1 extra skill tier. So that way I can actually spec into armor on one of these pieces. Now, let's break down the build, right? Let's get into the build. For the mask, we are running the China Light mask. This gives us 15% explosive damage. We have skill tier, skill damage, skill haste, and skill haste. Now, for one of the roles, you can go status effects instead of skill haste, but that's really up to you. Now, for the chest piece, I have 2 pieces of Hannah U, so I'm gonna get 10% skill haste, 10% skill damage. We have skill tier, skill haste, skill damage, a skill haste mod, and then we're running kinetic momentum. Reason why is because, remember, stacks increase your total skill damage by 1%, up to 15 stacks per skill, so a total of 30% extra skill damage you can have on this build. It's amazing thing, and I really like it. It definitely performs almost as good as glass cannon without having to worry about taking that incoming damage. So this is probably like one of the top skill talents to put on most of your skill builds. And you'll see on most of my hybrid builds, I'm running this talent right here. So yeah, this is definitely something you guys want to start putting on your builds. Now we are running a 2-piece wyvern, so we get 10% skill damage, 10% status effects. Yes, I'm putting status effect. We have skill tier, skill damage, and then we did roll status effects instead of skill haste. I did want status effects because of the bleed that your Mortar Turret puts. And if you look right here, look at the tick, 121,000. That's a tick, right? That's a bleed tick, and that's amazing. So that's why I did decide to put some status effects stacked on this build. Skill damage and status effects, and that helps out a lot. And we'll check out the bleed in a second. Now we are running 1 Golan piece. This gives us 10% status effects. Since I do have the 1 skill tier on the pistol, I could put armor here. We have status effects and skill damage for the attributes. Now, if you really want to go glass cannon, you don't want the extra armor, you can roll skill tier there and then just use the harmony. Now for the gloves, we are running the wyvern wear gloves, and this is our 2nd piece of wyvern, so we have skill damage and status effects rolled on the gloves. Now for the backpack, this is the 2nd piece of Hannah U for that 10% skill damage. We have skill tier, skill damage. I wanted to go with some skill haste on this one and then a skill haste mod because I do want that Mortar Turret to come back once it goes out. We have perfect combined arms. Shooting an enemy increases total skill damage by 30% for 3 seconds. That's a lot of damage, an extra 30% extra damage. So if you can have this procced, which when you're trying to proc in sync on your pistol or on the harmony, you're most likely going to have perfect combined arms active. And with having that extra roll of armor, I can actually stay out of cover. Now, if you feel that you aren't really proccing combined arms, it's a little harder to keep procced, well, perfect shock and awe is another really good talent you can put. Now, this does come on the China Light, so you do have to mix up the pieces, but this one, applying a status effect to an enemy increases total skill damage and repair by 20% for 27 seconds. Either way you decide to go, they're both really good. Just remember, perfect combined arms, you need to make sure that you're actually damaging them, right? You're shooting them to get it active. If you don't shoot them, it's not gonna be active. As long as you apply a status effect, which you will with the mortar, it's gonna be active. So two different ways to play. If you wanna play a little bit lazier because you're running in sync, I don't know, you guys can decide that. Now I am running the drone. Technically you could run the secret mines if you want, but I really like the drone because look at my damage, 70,000 damage right there. So that's just the base damage without any of kinetic momentum working or even perfect combined arms or in sync. The drone's gonna hit a lot harder as long as I have those going active. Now I am running the Mortar Turret, so this is artillery turret. So this applies bleed, a status effect on affected targets. Look at that, 3.4 million damage. The bleed damage is 74,000 a tick without any of the buffs active. Bleed duration, 10 seconds. So all that is increased. You saw my ticks were 121,000, right? And that's because I had everything active. So that's what's really cool. And that's why I like running these two skills side by side. Now I am gonna show you where you can get rid of one piece of Hana you right for that status effect and gold line status effect. If you can find these Grupo Sombra pieces, right? These pieces right here, 2 pieces give you 15% explosive damage. Well, that's gonna work on that artillery turret. Now, what I found is trying to get like 2 really good yellow rolls so I could switch the core attribute, or at least 1 really good yellow roll and then I could switch it and put armor at least. It's been hard to find. So if you can farm those pieces, 2 pieces, you can move the knee pads and the gloves, and then that will give you an additional 15% explosive damage. I personally like how the build works like this with the extra status effects, but if you want that extra explosive damage, well, that's really up to you. Now the next build is probably one of my favorite builds when I'm farming those resource convoys, or when I am just farming with friends and I could be the support CC build. Yeah, this build is actually pretty solid and a lot of fun. And we'll break this full build down for you right now. Wanted to show you a little clip of it in action just so you guys can see how much damage it does. So let's break down the build, right? Because this is where all the action is happening. We have a 4-piece gear set on, right? We got the Eclipse. We do have an exotic mask, and then we have a gold holster. We're running around 626,000 armor, and you can actually improve this and run almost 1 million armor and still do the same amount of damage. And I'll explain that in just a second. But we'll break down the skills I use. I do like using the fire starter. Now the fire starter is going to give me 8 shots, right? We have burn damage of 268,000, but the initial explosion damage that it does is 537,000 damage. So a lot of damage right off the bat, and then the burn damage is that continuous damage. And then we run it, I pair it up with the striker drone. The great thing about this is the striker drone will ignite fire. So once I shoot the cloud, if the striker drone is going off, it will ignite it, so I don't have to double tap to ignite it myself. Now for the weapons, the only thing I would really recommend you putting on this build is the harmony, and that's because you can perfectly in sync. Hitting an enemy grants 20% skill damage for 5 seconds. If your skill gets damaged, that increases your weapon damage by 20% for 5 seconds. But if you have both going active, that's 40% extra damage you get. So that's why you definitely want to be able to try to get that going if you can. For the secondary, you can use whatever you want. The Pestilence is pretty good. Now for the pistol, this new pistol that just came out, that's where all the action is. Now what's great about this is it gives you 1 skill tier. So as long as you have your pistol out, it's going to give you the 6th skill tier. And that's why this is actually really cool. If you can find that and put it on any of your skill builds, you're definitely really going to benefit from it. But for the build itself, so we start off with the Vial Mask. Now this is one of the good pieces, crucial pieces to this build, because it gives us 1 skill tier. We have status effects, hazard protection, and then we put skill haste on here. But toxic delivery is what's really gonna benefit you here, because you have status effects also apply a damage over time debuff for 10 seconds, but the total damage is dealt is equal to 50% of your concussion grenade damage, and it's increased by your status effects. So we're gonna have that throughout this build. And once you see what we pair this up with this green gear set right here called Eclipse Protocol, which the 2 pieces is gonna give us 15% status effects, right? That 3-piece is going to give us the skill haste and the hazard protection, but the 4-piece is why it's so good. Indirect transmission. Your status effects now spread on kill to all enemies within 10 meters and refresh 50% of duration. Now this comes with the skill tier. I have status effects on here, skill haste, but then the chest piece also has that talent which increases the indirect transmission range from 10 meters to 15 meters and the refresh percentage from 50% to 75%. So we are going to be using the chest and the backpack, and we'll explain in a second. So the wyvern, we have skill damage on here, and that's going to help us with that initial damage, and then of course the turret, skill tier, skill damage, status effects. And this is probably like the only piece that's going to give you that 10% skill damage plus give you 3 yellows. So exactly how you want to go with this. Now for the knee pads are going to be the second piece of Eclipse we're running, but we have skill tier and status effects. And then for the gloves, same thing, skill tier, status effects. If you can only choose one or the other, skill tier or skill damage, you want to put the status effects on there. And then for the backpack is the final piece, and this gives us status effects. We put a skill haste mod, and then the backpack, look at the backpack talent, amplifies all damage you deal to status effect targets by 30%. So that's going to work with your drone that's flying around shooting, right? So amplifies all damage, so that means everything you're shooting at it. So that's why the backpack talent and the chest piece talents on the Eclipse actually work really good together. And one thing I did want to say is because we have the pistol, right? We can actually sacrifice one of the skill tiers if we can find probably a holsters with a blue or almost god roll everything. Then I can sacrifice armor roll on one of these to give me a little bit more armor. Or if I want a little bit more damage, I can put weapon damage, right? But that's where you can actually sacrifice by having that one yellow. That's what's really, really cool about this build. Just to show you my watch real quick, I do have an extra 7.4% skill damage on there. We have some skill haste, and then we have skill repair. So the skill repair doesn't really matter, but if you could get the skill duration, skill damage, and skill haste maxed out, it improves the build some. So but yeah, this is how I run this build. The mask is where it actually shines the most. This is one of my favorite exotic skill pieces to put on any skill build I run. It just works hand in hand. Now I do want to show you how I have it modded. So we have 1 ammo and then burn strength on the fire starter. So that's really what you want to go with there. So just the 1 extra round, burn strength, and then for the assault drone, right, the striker drone, you want to go with duration, you want to go with health, and then damage on the last one. So those are the 3 mods you want to mod on there, and that should be standard if you're running this type of build. And the final build is actually a skill hybrid mixture of pistol damage with a lot of turret and assault turret damage. I'm sure you guys will enjoy this one. So we are running 1.1 million armor, 321,000 health, and we are running the technician specialization. Now a lot of you guys, if you don't know, technician has the 10% skill damage, plus they also have the +1 skill tier. Now when we pair that up with the pistol, right, the pistol, the name pistol that gives us 1 skill tier, that's already 2 skill tiers that we get, and that means that we only need to have 4 to get 6 skill tier skills. Now the pistol, I decided to roll in sync on there. That's going to give me 15% skill damage when I hit him with my weapon. Then when my skill hits him, I get 15% weapon damage, and if both are going at the same time, that's 30% extra skill damage, 30% extra weapon damage. So that's why that's actually really good. Now I do like pairing this up with the Sweet Dreams. The Sweet Dreams is for those purple and red enemies that rush you. If you want to just melee them really quick, swap to that, melee them, and then swap back. But these are the 2 guns I do use. Now let's get into the build, because that's where this build shines. So if you guys don't know, Punch Drunk is the name mask, and that's gonna give you weapon damage, headshot damage, and we rolled skill damage on there because of our skills, right? And then we have a headshot damage mod. So definitely a really solid piece to put. If you don't have this one, then you could just get a regular DH piece, but you definitely want to get that Punch Drunk mask. Now the Hannah U chest piece, we're going to be running a 2-piece Hannah U for skill haste, skill damage. We have 1 skill tier, we have skill haste, skill damage, and then we have a headshot damage mod on there. Now kinetic momentum is probably one of the best skill damage talents in the game right now if you're going to run some type of turret and some drone, because of the fact that when in combat each skill generates a stack while active and not on cooldown. So stacks increase your total skill damage by 1%. That's up to 15 times, and that's per skill. So that's 30% extra skill damage if you have both going active. That's really good. Now we do have the Wyvern Wear named holster claws out, and that's going to give us 10% skill damage. We have one skill tier. This one comes with melee damage and pistol damage, but hey, if you don't have this claws out, don't worry, run a regular Wyvern Wear, and then you can run skill damage and skill haste. You just won't have the extra pistol damage on there. But since I do have the Wyvern Wear, I do like the extra 9% pistol damage. That's going to be the difference. You'll have skill haste instead of the pistol damage. For the knee pads, we have the Bellstone Armor knee pads for the 1% armor regen. Since we do already have 6 skill tier, we're able to put armor there, skill damage, skill haste. We have our second piece of Hannah U, so that's going to give us that 10% skill damage. We have skill tier, skill haste, and skill damage. And then we get into the backpack right here. That's going to be Memento backpack. We have weapon damage, armor, and skill tier, and then we put a headshot damage mod on there. By now you guys should know why the backpack is good. Remember, you can get that stack up to 30 times, so 30% skill efficiency, 30% skill damage, 3% armor regen, and then when you do pick up a trophy, it has those small 10-second buffs. Now I like running the turret. Now the turret's gonna give me 106,000 damage, and that's before any of the stacks. And then the striker drone's gonna give me 66,000 damage. Now that is why I do like this. It's a lot of damage without even though having the buffs, and when you get that buffs, it's 30% more. And that's it. That's all 3 skill builds. If you guys enjoyed this, make sure you leave a thumbs up. As always, guys, make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on, so when I release a video, you guys get notified. But until the next Division 2 video, nothing but skills is out.